Valorant has a wide cast of agents that are meant to facilitate playstyles of all skill levels and ranks. But in a hero-based shooter, it's expected that the game devs will eventually create higher skill cap agents that often bring along higher skill floors that won't be as welcoming to newer players. What's going on, ProGuides family? It is your host, Sergeant Frost, and today we are going to talk about 5 agents that newer and less skilled players should avoid. There will be various reasons such as difficulty to use, requirements of certain knowledge, or just long-term growth as a player that affect our opinion on why you shouldn't use them. But at the end of the day, these agents are all agents that you can very well use if you have a specific preference for them, but they may not be as easy to pull off or find value out of. A lot of times, if a certain agent is the reason you're enjoying a game, or you just enjoy a certain agent a lot more, it would be a very good choice to play them regardless of the reasons we list. Starting off this list, we have the Cosmic Controller, Astra. If you have experimented with Astra in-game before, you know she is absolutely no joke. Astra is one of the most game sense demanding agents currently in the game, and there's no denying it. She is an agent that needs the user to balance when to go into astral form and when to come out of it to fight. Astra mains need to possess high-level multitasking skills in order to manage stars and support teammates, all while managing her own needs as well. With that being said, she is the #1 agent we recommend low elo and newer players to stay away from. She requires strong game knowledge, good decision making, an ability to communicate with teammates, a lot of ability knowledge, and most of all, disciplined multitasking abilities in order to make her work. Astra is an agent that always has to keep an eye on her minimap at all times to know when to deploy and activate her stars, and sometimes the stars won't even be on her own site. Additionally, she has been knocked down a few pegs in episode 3, so her abilities are just that much harder to pull off now, which just makes your life even harder than before. As it stands, Astra spends more time in her astral form manipulating the map than she does in combat. A lot of low elo players have trouble balancing going into her astral form and when to stay out of it. All of these macro concepts are beyond most low elo players' realm of comfort in game, and that is why she is much harder to pick up as an agent. Luckily, our specialty is helping lower elo players find their groove in game. So if Astra or another agent is who you want to master specifically, our Immortal and Radiant level coaches are eager to teach you the fundamentals and share their agent specific tips and tricks with you. Just visit our website ProGuides.com and find the coach of your dreams today. Breach is an agent that requires the user to be able to multitask while also fending for himself in combat. His kit as an initiator is a very powerful tool to set his teammates up, but the takeout animations are typically clunky and make it harder to do so without putting you or your teammates at risk of being caught out. Episode 3 has made this issue a bit better, but it also makes an existing issue with Breach also worse. If you're not careful, Breach's abilities are just as detrimental to his teammates as they could be detrimental to the enemies. Many times, his abilities can be a liability if they strike his teammates, which can cause your teammates to die and become angry at you. A lot of times, the use of a breach requires a fairly high amount of communication and game awareness, not just from you as a player, but also from the players who are being supported. Breach players need to know where to specifically place his abilities when attacking in order to make sure he actually has a good chance of hitting his enemies, and sometimes that can be very hard to predict, especially in low elo, where people may play stranger positions. Another aspect is that Breach requires a good amount of trust from both sides. On one hand, your entry needs to be comfortable with your flashes and stuns, and know where to avoid so that they don't get hit with the collateral damage. On the other hand, you're going to be in the back supporting, so you have to trust that your teammates will entry properly to utilize your abilities. This also goes into the defender side as well, especially since Breach is an initiator that better supports rather than duels by himself. Due to weaker communication, a lot of newer players will not coordinate and make plays with Breach, and therefore makes his abilities go to waste. While they are great for situations like retakes or supporting site holds, many of the times they require much more coordination to find good value. Before we move on, let's get to our question of the day. Today's question is, if you could master one agent, which one would you choose? Personally, if I could master one agent myself, I would choose JETT. JETT is already an agent that I have a lot of hours on outside of Viper, but I know I can always get better with her. JETT has an incredibly high skill ceiling, so there is always room to improve the little things while playing her in game. So what agents would you guys like to master in the future? Let us know in the comment section down below. Now, let's jump right back into the video. Next up on our list is the Latina hypercarry REYNA. REYNA may seem like a strange pick for some, since Smurfs and lower elos tend to play her a lot and dominate with her specifically, but part of what makes her worse as an agent for lower elo is because her ability set revolves around getting kills first and then profiting. Most agents in Valorant have an ability set that helps them get kills, like Phoenix or Raze or Sova or honestly almost everyone. REYNA sits in a weird position as an agent that doesn't have much in the side of helping herself get the kill, but she gets a whole lot when she does get the kill. But in most cases, just getting the first kill is the hardest part. And paired with how little communication there is in low elo, your teammates probably won't be doing too much to help you on that front either. REYNA as a whole isn't actually a particularly strong entry, despite your teams in rank probably forcing you to be the entry frag. As such, you'll have a much harder time than traditional duelists like Phoenix who have the tools to help them net the first kill. Additionally, many lower elo players tend to greed for healing rather than dismissing in key situations. In some cases, the dismiss is more important for staying alive rather than healing if the enemy is right around the corner. To be fair, these split-second judgments are much harder for lower elo players to go through, as that requires a good amount of situational awareness. As we talked about earlier in the video, a lot of newer and low elo players struggle with split-second mechanical decisions, and they don't always have the best impulse control. With that being said, REYNA is one of the most demanding agents in the game because she can only get her kit going if she gets frags. Let's quickly bring up her other abilities and why they are something that even pro REYNA struggle with. REYNA's ultimate is hard to control, mainly because of the fire rate buff. If pros and high elo players think that her stim is hard to control, then it is definitely too hard for low elo players to control. REYNA's flash can also be shot out very quickly, so more often than not it won't do its job, but at least you have the potential to bait it and swing while it's being broken. REYNA's kit as a whole focuses too much on momentum to win a game, while sacrificing the upfront value that most utility gives. This is something that most low elo players struggle with if they don't have the gameplay experience to consistently take favorable duels, or to coordinate with ranked teammates to make strong plays with their help. As such, we don't recommend using REYNA unless you're either much higher skilled than your competition, or you don't mind relying on teammates to enable your playstyle. JETT is one of the flashiest and most fun agents to play in the game. Her movement is the freest in the game, and her knives open up room for some really flashy looking cool plays. But just because she's fun to play doesn't mean she's a good pick for newer or more experienced players alike. JETT is one of the most mechanically challenging agents in the game. For example, her knives take practice to use properly since they have no recoil, and they can be used while running. Surprisingly enough, that actually makes aiming with her knives harder. The lack of recoil affects your muscle memory when you're adjusting your shots, and also the faster movement speed changes how fast you need to track your aim to keep up with your movement. Also, the mechanical concept of learning how to aim her knives while floating or in the air introduces a new level of verticality in your aim that you don't need to learn for any other type of agents in the game. People struggle with this from every elo, and that's why you sometimes see funny clips of people whiffing with all their knives. Trust me, it's harder than you think. From a gameplay and in-game role perspective, JETT is an elusive agent that has a special playstyle she needs to use in order to stay alive and survive her bold entries. Many low elo players will struggle with how to truly embrace this live life on the edge playstyle that JETT has. Her main purpose in game is to be an agent that is designed to create space when she entries, and many newer and lower elo players usually aren't brave enough to do that. But that's not to turn you away from JETT completely. One of the biggest things about JETT, however, is that the way she plays in low elo will be night and day from how she is played in high elo. A big aspect of JETT is that her skill ceiling is insanely high, and her playstyle constantly seeks to push the limits of aggressive and fast-paced Valorant. However, that also means to activate that side of her playstyle, players piloting her need to have exceptionally high levels of mechanical skill and situational awareness. If you are a player that wants to succeed in the long term and learn the fundamentals properly and build your skills, JETT is simply not a beginner-friendly agent. YORU is an agent that you don't often see in solo queue, and it's pretty obvious why. Many high elo players don't play him because he relies a lot on outplays, and it's much harder to do that in higher elos. YORU's mechanics involve knowing how to outplay someone by thinking ahead of time. Meanwhile, most lower elo players haven't been playing long enough to really gain that level of foresight in-game. YORU is not only a hard agent to play mechanically, his ability set is not very optimized, and the devs are trying to find out ways to make him functional and more appealing. YORU's flash is a great tool, but it is slightly weird to use due to its requirement that it has to bounce, as well as the fact that it has a strange football-like trajectory when flying. Not to mention, the flash is often better just to use for his teammates rather than for himself. Also, while YORU's ultimate can be used to scout the map out and get behind his enemies, it's often too dangerous to come out of it because you have a delay before being able to fire. So it's basically only a scouting ultimate. Finally, YORU's gate crash is an ability that needs to be prepared, but it also has a significant amount of delay when using, so it's more often forced to be used defensively. His decoy unfortunately is very weak, and is often dead weight on his kit except for in super niche clutch situations. Another very subtle thing to note is that because YORU is meant to be an outplay agent, players who learn to use him and main him will be forced into a mindset that he tries to make flashy plays to outplay his enemies, rather than just learn to play fundamentally sound Valorant. If you're always using your flashbangs to combo with your gate crash for a flashy Twitch clip, you may miss out on just using your flash for a regular peek because you are too focused on the outplay rather than the good play. This could be detrimental to your growth as a player, because if you're too focused on the outplay, then you'll unnecessarily complicate your playstyle, which definitely can hurt you as you climb up the ranks. Of course, if you're a YORU enthusiast, there's still a lot to look forward to. With Riot confirming a rework for YORU in the future, we might finally be able to find a place in the meta to fit him in, and perhaps our opinion will change regarding YORU's playability. Only time will tell, so fingers crossed for an awesome rework. Well guys, that is all we have for our 5 agents that low elo players should avoid. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to drop a like and consider subscribing if you want to watch more daily content. We upload new videos just like this one every day, and the best way to stay notified of that is by ringing that notification bell. Don't forget to check out ProGuides.com to gain some access to some truly amazing coaching. This has been your host, Sergeant Frost, and I will see you guys in the next video.